Today on Pots and Trowels we're talking houseplants, which is brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden, Darlac and Mr Fothergills. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels, and this week we've come into the potting shed simply because we've had so much horrible wet weather over the last week or so. The ground is really quite wet and I don't want to trample it and cause any damage. So next week it's due to be warmer, so yes, we'll definitely be back outside. But I thought what we'd do inside today is just have a little chat about houseplants and how to keep them healthy, because they are so popular at the moment. Everybody's growing them. It's great for, just to have some greenery in the house. It brings life into the house and it makes you feel good, and they give off oxygen, of course. So there are great benefits in growing houseplants. And over the last week, of course, I was talking about them at the Harrogate Spring Essentials show, and it was great that some of you came along to say hello and listen to the talks. And as a result of that, I've been on a little mini buying spree and bought some new houseplants just to add to the ones that we've already got in the house. And I'll be using these later on in June when I'm doing talks at RHS Harlow Car for their garden show there. So what have I got here? A little selection of all lovely little goodies. I tend to try and buy smaller plants. Apart from the fact that they're a bit cheaper, it means I can grow them on. And for me, part of having houseplants is to see them grow and nurture them. And from a small plant, we get a lovely specimen. So I've got a few here. This one, or these two, are ferns. I do like ferns. I really enjoy ferns. Now, bear in mind, these are tender ferns. These wouldn't grow outside. And most of the foliage plants that I've got here would originate from a sort of tropical rainforest area. So they like it dapple shade and humid. So just lovely different shapes and textures with the ferns here that are going to grow and make some specimens. I've also got a couple of peperomias here. These quite small plants. If you haven't got a lot of room, these are perfect. And different shapes and colours of leaves, lots of different types there. And then this one is one that you'll probably recognise. You'll know the bigger version of it. This is a monstera, known as the Swiss cheese plant. These were hugely popular back in the 1970s. Everybody had one of these in the house. This is a miniature form of it called monkey mask, and it's got these real fun leaves, look, with the holes in there. And you can grow this in two ways. You can grow it up a cane, so you support it, and as it grows it will produce this lovely column of foliage, or you can grow this in a hanging pot and let it cascade down the side to make a trailing plant. So various ways you can do it. The secret with these is not to have them somewhere too bright, although they do need light. As I've mentioned, they came from sort of tropical forests where they get that dapple shade. So what we need to do with these is a light position. Windowsill is fine, but probably not a south-facing windowsill, because that would crisp them up and it would be just too hot and the light would be too intense for them. The other one that you could grow with this, of course, is this one. I need to show you this. I had to buy one because I haven't had one for years. And I remember as a child, my mum having a big one that grew right up the living room wall. So this is the original Swiss cheese plant, Monstera delicosa. And it's a young one here. The leaves are just starting to develop, but this will get quite big. So you need a corner of the room to grow this. And what you would need ideally is some support. So you can buy these mossy poles. They would need to be pushed into the compost, and as it grows, tie it to it, and it will make a fantastic specimen in the corner of a bright room, a real talking point. So how do we look after our houseplants? Well, main thing is they need water and they need feed, just like us really, and it's just a case of getting that in the right proportions. We need to keep the compost moist, but we don't overwater. If they get too wet, they can get really soggy and the roots will rot off. So you've got to almost let them dry out a little bit before you water. And one of the ways that we kill more houseplants is when we grow them in these decorative pot covers like this, because these are watered. The water can sit in the base and it can rot. So what you must do after you've watered it, leave it for half an hour and then tip any surplus water away so that the plant isn't sitting in water. And that way they'll stay much healthier and they're not going to die. What I tend to do with smaller plants is to grow them either on saucers, or what I've got here, I've got this little mini collection of these 4 new plants while they're still small, I mean, they will eventually need potting into larger pots, but I've got them on a tray, a little bit of gravel there in the base. I will water them as normal with the watering can from above. So just carefully, I would water the compost to make sure it's moist. Only water when they need it. So fill the compost first. If it's dry, water. If not, leave it alone. And then any surplus water will go through into the gravel. And as long as these don't sit in water, the water is below the gravel level, what that will do is give off humidity, and it will create this little mini microclimate around these houseplants, and they will love it. They'll think they're back in the jungle because they've got that moisture around them. And it really, really does help to keep them healthy. If they're in a very dry, warm environment, the tips of the leaves can go brown. So creating that humidity will help to prevent that. And the other way we can do that is to occasionally mist them. And you can do this with any foliage house plant. Do it on a draining board or somewhere. I noticed somebody when we were at Harrogate last week said they did it in the bath. But just give them a mist over every now and again, not in bright sunlight, and that will just keep the leaves nice and clean and healthy, and again create that humidity. So I'm just going to pop that down there because if you are struggling with water, and I know some people find it quite difficult to get the water in right, they either overwater or underwater, and slightly underwatering is better given the choice of the two. But if you aren't good at watering, then why not consider a self-watering pot? And there are quite a few different types available, and this is one. They're very simple. It comes as a two-part kit. So we've got the main outer cover, and you get them all different colours, and then a pot that we plant into. So we actually plant our pot directly into that, bit of gravel in the base, then the compost. It's got little slits in the base, and it's where water can capillary up. And then that sits in there. So the base is just touching the water, but because we've got the gravel, the roots aren't going to get waterlogged. And what we do with this, it's got a little indicator on the front, which you can see there. And when you fill it with water, you will get the blue indicator. And once you can see the blue raindrops there, it's got enough water in. So the water level is roughly to this point here. And the base is just touching it. It will capillary rise up into the compost. When that level drops, then you can give it a bit more water. So it's really simple, and it's great if you're going away for a few days because it will water the plant for about a week at a time. And of course you can still add a little bit of feed into there to keep them fed, because that's something that we do need to do on a regular basis. Watering and humidity will help, but we then need to feed them. Just like us, they need feeding little and often. There's all sorts of different fertilizers that you can get that you add to the water. And I tend to feed little and often. Usually a little bit of feed about once a fortnight will keep them healthy. Or you can buy this type of feeder. This is a diluted liquid feed. You just snap the end off there, push that down into the compost, and that drips into the compost. Takes a couple of weeks to go, so it's feeding little continuously, and it just keeps them healthy. So feed from March through to about the end of September, and your houseplants will look really, really good. And finally, when do we pot plants? Because people often say to me, I don't know how to repot a plant. Well, this is a good time to do it because plants are growing. And I've got this one here, this Sansevieria, known now as the snake plant. Got these really architectural leaves on there. It's been in this pot for a while, has quite a strong root system. Now you can do two things with this. What you can do, and I've been doing this, is if I knock this out the plant, and this is one that is a tough plant, you can't kill this one, and it will grow in a hot, dry position as well. So if you've got a conservatory that gets sunny, this is ideal. What you can do, as you can see, it's got these quite vigorous roots. You can, if you want to reduce the size of the roots ball slightly, is just very carefully pull away, and I'm just going to, that will snap off, just like that. I'm just going to get my little snips here, just to cut that off. So I want to take a piece of the root, just there, and that's actually given me two plants there. So if I take that off, I've got two plants, don't fall on the floor, cut that there. As you can see from the root, I've got 2 new plants. So I can pot those up into some small sort of 3 or 4 inch pots, and they will grow and clump out like this and make a really, really good specimen in a couple of years. But also this one does need putting into a slightly larger pot. So I've got a pot here like that. So as you can see, it's going to give it an inch or so of compost around the base. So it's going to now expand and make plenty of growth. So I've got a little bit of compost. This is a houseplant sort of multi-purpose compost that I'm using. Just a little bit of that in the base, like that, and then we can stand our pot into it. Now, I don't tease the roots out. These are going to grow out, as you can see, they're already fine like that. And what you must do is make sure that it's been watered and allowed to drain before you pot it. Don't pot a dry root ball. So a bit of compost in there, and I'm going to stand that into the centre and then just carefully filter some of the compost around it. Now we want to make sure the compost goes all the way down. We don't want any air pockets, otherwise it will dry out. So it's just a case, just give it a shake and a little firm down. Just use your fingers lightly, don't over firm it. As you can see, that's gone down. Make sure it's central and in the centre of the pot, and then just finish off with a little more compost like that. Now I'm rushing it, you'll obviously take your time. Give it a tap on the bench. We give that a drink, making sure that the compost level is about probably an inch below the top of the pot. So we've got somewhere to water into, and that will be fine. And doing that now means that we've got the summer ahead of us, we've got good light levels, warm temperatures. This will make a really strong root system ready for the winter, and it will make lots of new growth. So by the end of the summer, it will have filled the pot and look even better than it is now. Thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and I hope your houseplants stay happy and healthy. Next week we're going to be back outside, weather permitting, in the garden, getting on with some practical jobs. So we'll see you then. Bye.